This is Studio 809.
Hi everybody, welcome to the Outdoors Hiking Bob podcast. I'm your host, Hiking Bob Falcone, and you can find me on my website at hikingbob.com, which has links to my social media, my columns at the Colorado Springs Independent, all the other podcasts we've done, the photography website I have, and also you can contact me there, or either sign up for my newsletter or send me an email if you have a topic or a guest you'd like to hear on the podcast. And don't forget, you can also help support this podcast at Patreon, patreon.com/hikingbob, and help me pay the bills and make this podcast keep going. We have a guest today. The guest is Todd Marts, who is the director of the El Paso County, and I want to make sure I get this right, El Paso County Parks and Community Services?
Correct.
I got it.
Yep.
Parks is a part of it, but you got a lot of other stuff going on.
Some other things, you bet.
Today we're mostly going to talk about the park part of things. Anyway, Todd, thanks for being on the podcast.
I'm looking forward to it. Enjoy it every year.
We always have a good time around this time of the year catching up, and I like to do this with both you and city parks.
Sure.
Because there's a lot of stuff going on, and in the mix of all the other things we're doing with our lives, we kind of lose track of stuff that's going on. So I get all the news releases from county communications. They do a great job, but things get lost in the mix. So I like to start off when we do this is tell us what were the big things that El Paso County Parks did in 2024.
I'm proud of really four highlights. There were a lot of things we did, but four things really I think were significant. The Fox Run Nature Center, the design was completed this year, which was great. We also built some trail in the Pineries, which we've been wanting to do for years. And so you've got the 8-mile loop, but we have extended a new loop of 3.5 miles. So that's a great addition. And then we completed two very critical master plans, and that is the Paint Mines Master Plan and also Jones Park.
I actually did that loop, the new trail in the Pineries, and wrote a column about it for the Indy, about how nice that gives you some options now. And I had a long talk with a long email exchange with Ross Williams, your park planner, and talked about the eventual connection of that across the highway there to Section 16, a little ways off. They got to wait for some federal money to come through on that, but that's pretty exciting that's happened down there.
It really is. Pineries is well loved and well used, but it is an open space, and so we really want to make sure we're protecting the resource. And with the high use, it was nice to have another trail that will alleviate some of the pressure and provide opportunities for people that might not have as much time or energy to do a longer hike. Yeah,
typically if you didn't want to do that whole 8-ish, I think it's almost 9-mile loop there, you either did an out and back, which was fine. I like going to the old CCC Dam over there in the southeast corner and coming back. But it's nice now that you have another loop that you don't go out and back. You get to do a loop and come back here. It's really nice, and it's a nice trail. I like the little bridges over some of the drainages in there that's going to keep people out of the mud and the muck and stuff like that. Pretty nicely done. Yeah. The Fox Run Nature Center. I was just in Fox Run a couple days ago. Took my dog for a walk there. We like going up there. How is that progressing? You said you got the design done.
Design's done. So we are still working on the capital campaign and moving forward with that. Lots of grant proposals out there, and so optimistic of completing the capital campaign in 25 and looking at construction in 26. The design was an interesting process. We really took our time doing it because we wanted to be thoughtful. And one of the things that we did add to the design that extended it a little bit was the restoration of the road. And so we knew we were going to restore it, but we went the extra step and actually did the design work. And it's an exciting project. We're looking at doing the pond gazebo, the ponds and gazebo project in Fox Run this year. And one of the neat things that we came up with is some of the soil that we're going to take out of the pond when we dredge it could then be used in the restoration project of the road, extending above the nature center. So it's been a long process, but I'm really proud of what the design team has come up with, and looking forward to the capital campaign.
How close are you on the capital campaign?
We've got some ways to go. So I think, with the grants that we're optimistic about, hopefully we'll be about halfway to our goal. And so we'll be looking at the second half of that in 25.
Cool. And do you estimate that project's going to cost?
So it's hard to estimate such a big project. And so with contingency funds, we're between $10 and $13 million. Okay. And I think we're hoping for closer to the $10 amount, but we'll be planning for more.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, nothing is ever as cheap as you think it's going to be.
That's right.
And I find that when I'm doing a project at the house, nothing ever takes the amount of time you think it takes.
Always double it. Yeah.
And this is kind of off the side, but kind of how these projects go. The running bet at my house is how many trips to Home Depot am I going to take to get this project done?
I think there will be a few trips to Home Depot with the nature center. So,
yeah, I'm sure there will be. The over-under for my house is about 6 for any project. How has been, you've done a lot of public input with the Fox Run Nature Center. How has that gone? I know there was a little resistance at the beginning and I know your team does a lot of work to talk to the public and get their input. How has that gone with the public input?
I think it's gone very well. We've continued to do more public meetings, more public outreach, and there certainly are still some people concerned about things like traffic. We're still continuing to work on that. We did do some modifications to the building. We shrunk the size of the footprint in the building itself. We've lowered the canopy walk to minimize the view, and so people that are walking in the park, you won't be able to see the canopy walk for very, very far because of the density of trees. But we thought bringing it a little bit lower will reduce that impact, and so we've really tried to be cognizant of it and considerate of that. So.
Good. And so I'm imagining that the public opinion of this has gone more to the approval side than it had been initially?
I would say so. I've gotten dozens of support letters just in the last 6 months. And so they're very kind, supportive letters and people saying that, you know what, from a community-wide regional park standpoint, they really want to see this happen.
Yeah. It would be like I said, I was just there and love going there. It would be a great addition to that park. It's a beautiful place, big, tall stands of trees that somehow avoided being burned out from the Black Forest fire and just to manage to survive, and it's a gorgeous place. So
very much so.
I'm excited to see this project move forward. When the funding fully comes in, and we're not sure when that's going to be, and I'm not going to pin you down to a date, what do you think is the project timeline to get it completed? Yeah,
the design team came up with, a year and a half for construction. And again, those trips to Home Depot could extend that. But, I think it was a realistic timeline. And so we know there's going to be some work ahead of and behind it to make sure the park is well taken care of. They've mapped out every one of the trees, and there will be a tree preservation plan. So that will protect the trees, but also take a little bit extra time to do the construction.
Gotcha. That's great. Paint mines, probably one of the busiest parks you have in the system. I imagine it's a tourist attraction. Becomes more and more popular. It's out there a ways. I tell people it's one of those things. It's a great place. You got to want it because you got to go out there about 45 miles east of town here to get to it. Mm-hmm. How did that master plan process go? I know there was some concern about some parts of it, but how overall? Yeah, it seemed like the biggest problem with that was managing the people more than the resource.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it. And that's our responsibility from the county perspective. We manage the people. We are not going to close the park. It's not going to be a reserve. It's going to be open to the public, but we need to manage that better and to protect the resources. That's our responsibility. So I think that the team came up with some great ideas. A series of public meetings, got some great public feedback. We made some modifications based on that, and so. Different things. I encourage people to go to our website to really look at the plan, and it'll be implemented in stages. It's certainly not going to be implemented next year completely, but we will be working on it. We have funding in place for some projects this year. So the interesting part is the majority of people, when they get there, they don't intend on climbing the formations. And I think a lot of people get yelled at and they go, I'm sorry. So what happens in there is people that have been there, you hike up through those little coulees and canyons, you end up getting up a little bit higher, and pretty soon you're at an elevation that you're almost on top of. And so we need to help them out and let them know where those boundaries are. So we'll do that through a series of boardwalks where flooding is a problem. We'll do that through very low but obvious barriers to make people aware that they need to stay down. And there will be some additional fencing where it's appropriate, especially at the end of a trail. We want to make sure that people know that's the extent of where the public is invited. And they need to turn around, still have plenty of opportunities to enjoy the paint mines and absolute opportunities to take great photographs.
Okay. I know that one of the concerns from the photography community, which I'm a part of, was the fencing that you were talking about, the barriers you were talking about putting in there, them getting in the way of pictures. For people who are not sure, how tall are you talking about with these?
Yeah,
these
so
barriers?
I don't want to quote.
People were picturing like 6-foot fences in front of these things.
No.
And obviously, that's not going to work for anybody.
So initially it was the 3 rails in some places, and now it's going to be 2 rails. But in the areas where photography is going to be most important, we're going to do, I would say, knee height, kind of a chain approach. And so it's certainly something people could step over. It's not going to stop them, but it's going to let people know this is where we need you to stay on this trail.
Okay.
Yeah.
Right. As a photographer, and we're going to have a podcast coming up where we talk about artificial intelligence and photography. We could make that chain disappear in the picture.
Yeah, and there's already power lines.
A big fence would be difficult, but a chain would be something that we could take care of. What was the other big takeaways from the master plan for paint mines? Any new improvements to parking or anything like that, or what are the other things?
That was a big thing, and it was a big focus of ours. We know that it's gained popularity. COVID was kind of the impetus, but now with the marketing and people that are just coming out from all over to see it, we like that. But we need to make sure that we're managing that well. And one thing about gravel parking lots, not only is the drainage a problem, but also it's not efficient parking. And so we're looking at paving the parking and making sure that it's well marked where people can go. We need to keep people from parking on the road. That's unsafe and not good for the residents around there. So we're going to expand the parking, so there will be more parking, and we are going to expand the upper parking lot for the overlook, because that is where a lot of people can go, and also where people with accessibility issues can be able to at least view the paint mines.
Is that the parking lot just past the main parking lot?
It is, yeah.
What about the one all the way around the corner on the south side?
We're going to keep that open.
Okay.
We are looking at potentially having a gate there and only opening it during peak times because it's not as well used.
I kind of like that one myself.
Yeah. So, but we're definitely going to keep that parking lot. All of them will still be available, and we will make sure that we're advertising and letting people know that there's 3 parking lots. So if the first one's full, go to the second one. The second one's full, go to the third one.
I personally like hiking in from the south one. I really like that view coming down in there because you get that overhead view and you just come down into right into the formations there, right into the hoodoos and stuff. I really like that view. That's my personal favorite.
I like it, and I like that you said that because we want to make sure that we're marketing that to people, and you just did it. So all your listeners now will help spread that use out and come in from that side. I think that's a great, and I agree with you. It's a great view of the paint mines.
Yeah. Go past the first lot, go past the second lot, go around the corner, hit the third lot. You're going to have a great opportunity there. All this stuff requires manpower to manage the people. Where are you at with how are you managing the manpower, I guess would be the way to put it, for the paint mines? Are you going to have more staff there? How's that working? We do, and we have. And so we've had park, try to get the title right, park interpreter caretakers is what we're calling them. So they're not law enforcement commissioned officers. They are there to interpret, talk about the natural history, cultural history, and also encourage people and tell people where they should and shouldn't be. And so we can do signs, we can do fencing. The real way to encourage the wisest use of our resource is to have people there to explain why and to also let people know. And so we'll do that again this year. In fact, I think one of the positions is open right now. So cool. You can go online to El Paso County Parks and you can see the job opening. It's a great opportunity, and we've got a little SUV thing that they can drive in and out for safety reasons. We needed to have that, and they get to talk to people from all over the world, which has been really cool. Cool. I think that sounds great. And what was the other master plan you told me? Jones Park. Jones Park. I'm sorry. Yeah. And I should have known that because I had a bunch of emails on that. How are things going with the Jones Park? What is the end result of that master plan process? So I think it was a great collaborative compromise
for a lot of different groups. And it was probably, I think, in the county park history, one of the more challenging master plans we've done.
Start with it being so far up there.
It's far away, but
and you got to hike in.
very, very passionate, very driven user groups and the variety of them. And then some complexities with the greenback cutthroat trout and the restrictions that are there, and the restrictions that were in the deed when the county acquired the property, the restrictions that are there from the all the other documents that built it. But the good news is we've got the master plan in place. The trails that were potential trails are still in there. They're in the appendix as proposed, and there is opportunities for that down the road. And I always reminded people during this whole process, master plans are not set in stone for decades. They are intended to be 3 to 7 years, and that's what this one's for. We're not planning on this being this way forever, but it's a good start and a wonderful framework for us to build from.
Well, and especially once you get done the master plan, you have to do another one because there's always something that comes up. What can we expect to see? Any changes there, or are we going to see any major? I mean, I know that not everything's going to happen overnight. None of this stuff happens overnight. But can people who visit Jones Park, and like I said, it's a hike to get back. I don't care which way you go. It's 3 miles one way, I think, pretty close to get up there. Mm-hmm. Are people going to see any major changes to anything there, or what would people expect to see from this?
We will. We're planning a reroute, just a trail that has serious erosion problems, just a minor reroute to make sure that we're doing sustainable trail building. And we will also be continuing, we're already doing this, but we'll be continuing maintaining the trails that we have, which is a real challenge because it is erosive soils, and we want to make sure that we're doing our part to control that erosion.
Mostly just going to be just maintaining trails. New trails, I guess, are going to be going in there at some point?
Not at this point,
okay.
But they are included in the master plan.
They're in the master plan.
Part of the discussion. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Cool. Do you have any timeline? Like, I know you said there's a 3 to 7 year thing. Are you looking more toward the 7-year end of things for some of this to happen? Or
we have not mapped out any of that right
okay.
now. So I think it's just in place now and something for us to consider, and it'll be a good guiding process for us if there are proposals, and if we would like to expand things, we can do it as based on the master plan.
One of the last parks you all built was the one in Falcon. How's that gone? I know you did like a big build out on that, and then you do things in phases, which
mm-hmm.
makes sense. I like the phased approach as opposed to we're not opening it till we're done, which could take 10 years. Yeah. CPW has kind of gone in that direction with there's new state parks. Fisher's Peak as an example. They used to wait until it was completely done. Now, we could open this in parts. Yeah. How has things gone with Falcon Regional Park?
It's going very well and absolutely growing in popularity. And they just put Rex Road kind of through the park, and so that's changed the dynamics a little bit, but also opened up and made an opportunity for us to finish some of the trails.
Okay.
And so over the next couple of years, you'll see some new trails in the northern section of Falcon Regional Park and some other improvements in the south part too. And so we do a annual kite festival there, and that has really promoted the park in the Falcon area. And it's well used from baseball too and softball. So
I was going to ask you about the sports fields. Some sports fields went in there when it was initially built. Have you added any more yet? I know that was kind of in the plans, I think, to add more.
Right. Been talking to some groups about potentially adding another one. We'd like to add the plan was for a fourth, and it's a little bit bigger. Prices have increased dramatically in the price of those. And so working with some creative ways to look at different funding sources for that, and we'll be working on that in 25. Don't see the field being put in 25, but certainly part of the conversation.
Getting the funding started and stuff like that. Yeah. Awesome. What other great things did you guys do last year?
I think there was at the nature centers, they established some new volunteer programming, which is great. They call them the restoration crew, and they go out and do manual labor in our parks, not just around the nature center, but throughout. And so That's been a great addition. We had minor ADA and accessibility improvements throughout the park system, which is a great thing for us to be doing. We want to make sure that everybody can not only park in the parking lot, but then get into the park. And so those barriers are for people that have challenges, it's huge. And so we've done a lot of work in the last year and continue to do in 25 in making sure they're accessible.
Fountain Regional Park suffered from a pretty devastating flood. Or I'm sorry, not the park, but the nature center suffered a pretty devastating flood about a year ago, I want to say, roughly. How was that restoration project gone? And we
were in the process of fixing some of that when the flooding happened, and so but it is almost completed. We've did two benefits. One is it'll help with the flooding. It also will make it more accessible.
Good.
And so when next time you go to Fountain Creek Nature Center, there will be a little bit of a longer sidewalk going down to it, a little bit more of an adventure going down, but it's safer and it's more accessible, and it'll help with that flooding.
That concrete ramp that kind of went to it, I imagine, was probably one of the things you're talking about. And that is, it's just, I can see where that created an issue there. The Trailability program, hugely popular. In the last year, Cheyenne Mountain State Park bought 2 of those devices based on a lot of the input from your staff. Gaining in popularity, how is that going with your system? It seems like it's getting people out there. Yeah,
very exciting, and it's almost humbling how many awards that program has received. Just this year, we got one from Visit Colorado Springs, and it really has been an impetus for us to look at other ways to do it. And the really exciting part is, so we went to Staunton State Parks to talk to them, and they really helped us a lot. And now we are that resource for other agencies, and they've come from across Colorado and actually across the country. We've been approached for how you doing, how's it working, what do you do with this? And they don't all select the train hoppers. They've used different modifications, but I think it's a great thing for the county to be one partner of that's helping it grow throughout the country.
Yeah, Staunton uses the track chairs, which are good for their park.
Right.
Not necessarily good for like Cheyenne Mountain. We thought that they were. I was on the board of directors there, and they were not a great choice for there because they're a little taller, a little top heavy. But for Staunton, which is all ranches and very wide open, it made sense for their. Colorado Springs went with the track chairs. Cheyenne Mountain went with the terrain hoppers. There are a lot of devices out there, and it's great that your program is really become a model for that. Kylie over there has just done a bang-up job in making that program.
You bet.
Making that program work. Let's move on to 25. What can people expect to see in this year?
Sure. So a couple of big things, and one of them is glamorous and flashy, and one of them is a little more in the background. But I mentioned the pond and gazebo at Fox Run. The gazebo has been in so many weddings. I'm guessing a lot of your listeners either know or have been married at the gazebo.
I hiked around it the other day.
Yeah. So, but the gazebo is falling apart and it's collapsing into the water. And so we knew we had to do something to restore it. And so we are in the design phase right now. And in addition to that, those ponds have filled up with silt. And so we need to dredge them. Those ponds are important for scenic reasons, for recreational, but also we use them practically for our irrigation of our fields. So we're going to be dredging the ponds and fixing the gazebo. And so there will be a little bit of a pause in weddings, but the end result is going to be a great addition to Fox Run.
If the gazebo sinks, it just becomes a water feature. I mean, is that a problem?
If it would just go down, but it's falling outward. So,
so that's not good.
Yeah, no. So we put up some extra fencing, so it's still accessible. And that's the other thing is, it's not accessible. They're very hard to get down to. Right. So people with challenges are limited. And
a lot of wooden steps to get down in there, yeah.
So that is absolutely part of this too, is there will be parking that's accessible and a pathway down.
So when is that project scheduled to kick off?
So the design is still in the works, and so we'll be hopefully completing that in early 25 and then going out to bid for construction. And I see it as a pretty long-term project, so it's going to take some time to dredge the ponds and rebuild the gazebo.
So do you think that'll carry over into 26 necessarily or not?
My hope, Bob, is we get it done in 25, but I think it probably will. So,
okay. Yeah, it's one of those, if it's like all the other park systems I talk to, it's getting people to do it and getting them out there and hitting your budget, which you have a budget set, and by the time it gets time to do that, it's not on budget anymore. It's really it seems like budgeting nowadays is a moving target. What's the not so flashy thing?
So we're County Parks is been doing a great job for decades, but it is time for us to really take a more data approach to our management. And so we're looking at doing an asset management plan, and it will be an inventory of all our resources, all of our amenities, and then a condition assessment for all of those. And so we'll be collecting all that data, which is great, but then we have to do something with it. And so we're going to be implementing a software program that will help us track that. And it likely will be a program called CityWorks, and that will help us with tracking where our parks are and where our greatest needs are. And so we can go to funders and say, hey, this park is in this level of condition, this playground is at this level of condition, and we need to make sure that we're addressing those in a priority-wise. So very excited about that. I think we're going to add some staff and be able to implement this in 25, and hopefully by the end of the year we'll have it in place. And so budgeting in 27 and 28 will be based on data driven needs of the county parks.
That's actually a great idea. I mean, obviously, how can you... I imagine one of the challenges you face is when you go to the county commissioners every year for your budget, you need X amount of dollars, whatever it is, or you need more. We always need more, especially with, like we talked about, cost going up. We always need more. One of the questions is, well, where do you need it? Without this kind of study, it's hard to quantify where exactly you need it. I mean, the popular things you need. You need more people at paint mines. You need more fencing at paint mines. That's easy to quantify. Right. But there's a lot of other places that maybe doing that is a little more difficult.
You bet. And we're still catching up from deferred maintenance from 2007 and 8. We put a lot of things off because we were challenging budget years, and so we still have a lot of catch up to do. And this will help us prioritize the largest needs first, and then work down the list.
I know one of the things you were working on when you came in was to keep your staffing stable, and you did that by getting the commissioners to work with you, boosting pay and benefits, and making it so that they don't want to come here and then immediately leave for the next shiny object. And I'm not blaming, and I'm not saying that to blame the employees. Obviously, they have to take care of themselves. Sure. How has that been? Has your staffing been stabilized? Have you seen more longevity with your staffing?
We really have, and I give credit to the county commissioners and county administrators. Really, the county has come full circle, and I've been here for 30 years now.
You've been here a long time.
Been here a long time, and I can tell you that this is truly the best time I've seen as far as understanding that employees are our greatest resource, and we need to make sure that we're retaining them, training them, and when you have salaries are a big part of that, and we want to make sure that they're paid well and they're paid fairly, and the turnover has dramatically decreased. So it's been great to see. That helps us with so many things, not just it makes it easier. It also makes it so we don't have to retrain employees every year. And that means they're going to be more trained. They're going to have more knowledge about that park or resource, and then they can take it to the next level. And so I'm very proud of what's happened in the county, and look forward to the next couple of years of continuing to do that.
I know when I go to the parks or I read the newsletters that you guys put out, I see the same names and same faces, which is great. It's not like, well, who's this person? That's kind of a great thing. And you, like you pointed out, low wages result in people turnover. You lose that historical knowledge. You lose that historical experience. So the advantage of obviously, having a stable workforce is obviously you're not spending a lot of time just going over the same things, training people and stuff like that. So I'm glad to see that's happened. Overall, how has the budget been for parks from 2024, 2025? Have you been able to at least be stable? Have you gotten an increase? How's the budgeting process gone?
Yeah, so we've been stable and we have increased. It's every year we have critical needs, and this year the asset management is where we've put some additional funds, and in addition to a little more contracting for park maintenance. And so the budget has increased, and very, very happy with how the budget's progressed in the years that I've been the director, and see some great things happening in the next couple of years.
Todd, I know you have to go because we squeezed you in. It's been, or you squeezed me in, I should say, and I really appreciate you taking the time. I know it's been chaotic with scheduling and stuff like that. I really appreciate it. Always appreciative of the county parks. I hit them as much as I hit any other parks. I hit the city parks, state parks, county parks. They all run together in some places, which is kind of interesting. Right across the street, you go across through Fox Run or Bear Creek, you end up in City Park and Forest Service land. It's wonderful how all these things meld together. What would you like the public to hear, or your message to them about the county park system going forward?
Certainly want people to identify and recognize county parks, but really I want them to recognize that we're part of a much larger system of opportunities in the Pikes Peak region. And El Paso County Parks is a proud partner with a lot of other agencies, and we see our role as making sure that the visitors can go from one to the next and have a similar or better experience as they go along. And so we proud of what the county parks has done, and we look forward to expanding the activities and resources and really looking at how do we take better care of what we have. Awesome.
Well, Todd, thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate it. I know you had to squeeze me in, but I really appreciate you doing that. What's the website people can go to check out the parks?
PasoCountyParks.com. And I encourage you to go there, and you can see all the different parks and also some of the opportunities. If you want to volunteer, if you want to help out with any of the projects that we have going on. I mentioned the restoration crews that we've got going at the nature centers. If you want to do a little more labor, encourage you to check those out and come out and help us maintain our parks.
Get yourself in shape for hiking.
That's right.
There you go. Todd Marts, Director of El Paso County Parks and Community Services, thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you, Bob.
Thanks, everybody, for listening to the Outdoors Hiking Bob podcast.